everybody. We should be live. And yeah, we're starting. Hi, hello. Yes, I'm just making sure that we're live. Also, please, guys, those of you who are connecting right now, let me know if you are hearing us fine. I am Dr. Francesca Zampollo. Welcome to this, what is it, the fourth, I think, webinar for this series. Today, my guest is Aya Shaban. Hello, Aya. Thank you for being with us.
Hi, thank you. I'm really happy to be here and honored to be part of this webinar series.
And we will be talking about food system design, which I'm excited about. And this is a topic that I've been wanting to discuss for a while. And it's a topic that we will be discussing a little bit more with our not next Friday, but in 2 more Fridays, I think, some more. So brilliant. Before I start asking my questions to Aya, just a couple of things. First of all, welcome you guys in the chat room. Let us know from where you are connecting. The audio is good. Thank you, Carola. And tell us where you're from. What time is it for you? I'm in Italy. Aya is in Jordan. And what time is it for you, Aya?
6 p.m.
6 p.m. Okay, so about tea time for you too. And also tell us, guys, what is your food design background or food design interest, or from which branch of food design you come from. Yeah, so Aya, my first question for you is, of course, to tell us a little bit about yourself, how you have come to the world of food design, and how your business, your studio started.
Sure, thank you. So my name is Aya, and I'm based in Jordan. I usually find it quite hard to talk about myself without referring to my work, but my work is really a reflection of my personal journey. It always ends up talking about me, and I'm really happy to share the story of how my practice came to be and what experiences shaped my approach as a food designer. So talking about food systems and system design is a bit complex. So I prepared a presentation that would help me stay grounded and focused that I would love to share with you in just a moment. Just a second.
We also have Maya, who says hello there. Maya, where are you from? Tell us. And then we have Barbara from Portugal. Hello, Barbara. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you for writing something in the chat room, so we make this a little bit cozy, I think.
So, do you see it now?
Yeah, we are good to go.
Okay, so I'm an architect, and I worked in the field very shortly before I knew that I could not imagine building yet another concrete box. I was seeking new meanings and new possibilities, but architecture really opened my eyes to many disciplines. I found myself diving deep into ecology, ethnobotany, philosophy, and psychology. I found great inspiration in biodiversity, traditional knowledge, phenomenology, and was really interested in the state of dissociation and alienation that we experience as humans today. I was already really interested in natural systems and couldn't really integrate with the conventional modes of sustainability. So I took off on my own. Well, not really on my own. It was with the other half of Namliya. I decided to explore fields like permaculture design and holistic thinking. So I went to Malaysia with my best friend, who shared a lot of these interests. We took courses in natural building and organic farming, and worked with many different self-sufficient communities as designers. But what we were really obsessed with was people's relationship to food and how it formed a common language across really insanely diverse cultures and ethnicities. And it was really loud in the market. So, by the way, this is exclusive footage that we never shared before. I think it's safe to to share it now. It's been almost 9 years. But this on the left is me. I was working shortly in a fruit stall, and you would just find us in night markets, in wet markets, in different food markets. And it was fascinating to see how everyone we met was communicating to us um, through food, trying to represent parts of their identity. And throughout that phase, we were documenting our observations of the intangible quality of food. And we were so immersed in the research that we paid very little attention to where and how we lived as we moved across the regions following certain seasons. And at the time, our parents were a bit worried. They would say that, where are you staying? What are you doing? Only eat hot meals from sealed kitchens. And Manal there is just having her juice at the side of the street in her 5-star hotel. And this was our royal suite, like a walk-in closet, a little living area. And we were so immersed in the documentation that we never really thought about all of these details. And just in the same year, as soon as we arrived home, we founded Namliya. And after, there was a strong feeling where we wanted to materialize all of these, let's say, newly found connections and possibilities. We really wanted to create our own interpretation of new systems that would actively bridge the gap between man and nature. So our work came to be a manifestation of, let's say, showcasing a model of interconnectedness. And we ended up with a model that not only suggests environmental and social solutions, but also an economical one. And so the scope of our work is quite wide, but the most familiar part of the work is, let's say, the customer-facing front end. We operate a kitchen in the city center and host many interesting workshops and events in our design studio. But really not a lot of people know, let's say, the back end and the intricate mesh of systems that goes behind our work. So at the core, there's a design-driven critical thinking engine investigating the difference between processes and mechanisms that dissociate man from his environment to those that actively integrate man as part of nature. So when we look at these disciplines, there are endless and countless intersections. And at every node, there are many possibilities to look at the same old problems that we face, but from entirely new angles. So the output could range from futuristic concepts to entire systems and processes, creating new learning tools, and even offer pathways to a higher state of awareness. But if I could really put our work process in one sentence, it would be this: from fragments to dynamic wholeness. And it's really the quality that you find in any organic system. And that's it for an introduction.
I mean, aren't you guys loving this? I'm loving this. I knew I would have loved this, and I am loving every word that you are saying. Thank you so much. I can't wait to hear more and really dive deeper into an example of someone being a designer who looks at, designs for, pays attention to the food system. So we have Maya, who is from Jordan. Okay, hello Maya. And then Jonathan from Peru. Hello, Carla from Germany. She was looking forward to this talk, and she's interested in the Goethe Institute. I'm interested to know when the Goethe Institute continues their food features. Can you answer this question, Aya? Are you still in touch with them?
Yes, actually, yes, I can.
So you see, awesome. So Carola has been with us for a few months then. Excellent.
Yeah, awesome to see her with us again. So we're working on a very exciting program I was involved in the first part, let's say, moderating the talks, but
When
now
I
we're
was
taking
also...
really where we had you, and it was an amazing talk. By the way, most of the talks are now, I think the recorded versions are online. I haven't checked them myself, but we're working on a really exciting program where we hope to hopefully have a physical workshop and to invite people from all over. But very soon we'll talk about it.
Excellent, excellent. So stay tuned.
So stay tuned.
Paola from Mexico, Lynn from Jordan, and then Aber from Jordan. You have a lot of friends from Jordan. Oh, awesome.
Oh, cool.
And then Noor from Jordan as well. Excellent. What a beautiful group. And Noor is saying, Aya, it's so nice to hear your story. I completely agree. And in fact, I want to immediately move on. The second question that I usually ask my guests is necessary today. It's a little bit about giving a perspective on how, if and how things have shifted from us, from the perspective of those who do food design. So, what do you think that food design can do in the current global situation that we are living?
Yeah, I'm prepared for that question. But please tell me if you can see my screen.
Not now.
Okay, just give me a moment.
No problem.
Not the most tech savvy here.
Me neither. So. Yeah, we're
okay, ready. Perfect. So I'm going to try to answer this question by referring to some of the projects that we did in the past years. Just give me a moment. Okay. So do you see the slide that says a gateway to consciousness?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So in the world today, food can be, unfortunately, an element of isolation, detachment, and even exploitation. But in that same way, it has the power to heal our relationship with the world, foster new consciousness pathways, and inspire mindful eating habits that revive our natural systems. So I'm a strong believer that designers can play a unique role in presenting our oneness with the world in bite-sized reminders. And one of my favorite projects that I would love to share with you today is one that we did really early on, and it was actually a continuation of our graduation thesis that was studying the complexities that define our relationship to the land. We suggested that man's dissociation from nature as a living organism could be revived through a deeper appreciation of biodiversity. And it was guided by the act of being, and let's say really inspired by Heidegger's philosophy. And after Namliya, we added another layer, and then Teascapes came to be, more of a poetic expression of how we can build a relationship between inner and outer landscapes through the act of brewing. And what I find particularly interesting in such a project is that it took so many different lives in the past years, and there were so many endless possibilities where food design could step in to materialize such poetic concepts into accessible products and experiences. So, for example, Teascapes is now introduced into our product line as botanical brews that are inspired by the landscape. And we have different brews that, let's say, poetically capture qualities in certain landscapes in Jordan.
Let me ask you this question very quickly. You can stay on your slides, but just because I'm thinking about it, so maybe somebody else might be thinking about it. Are these for sale on your website?
So we don't have an e-store where we can ship outside of Jordan, but we do, like, we have a small shop in Amman. We deliver across Jordan. And before the pandemic, we were exporting to Dubai and different areas in the Emirates. But at the moment, we don't have an e-store where we can ship.
Okay, but okay. So just in case somebody can get in touch with you and things can be explored further. Brilliant. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So another way food could address global issues is through empowering the designers to create new meanings. For me personally, food design gave me the power to address complex personal questions of belonging and individuality. Coming from a politically charged area, there are superimposed narratives with unnatural borders and strong notions of ethnocentrism. And we are really trained to accept stagnant statements, such as being a dry desert with very few resources and a predetermined future. And that really got me thinking deeply about these issues. And in a very interesting way, I've always considered Namliya's branding as a form of self-expression. It represented an ongoing journey of finding ways to communicate our worldview, as well as our vision for a different future. So the core of the brand identity is celebrating biodiversity across different landscapes. And it was really triggered by this observation that there was a real gap between the richness and the diversity of the land versus the projected reality that we are living in daily, in cities and in villages as well. So our creative process really goes through cycles of investigating, grasping, and translating these findings into different experiences and products that inspire a path back to nature. So, for example, these simple icons have been really an important part of our branding because it was just our way of expressing how we see the landscape and how we want to move from nationalism to bioregions and to bring more attention to the richness and the diversity that could inspire us as people as well to embrace that diversity and to have more tolerance and acceptance and openness. But that's really like a very personal part of food design for me. But I would say that one of the most needed areas for food designers to step in is the business world. The market is just flooded with conventional models that are based on highly consumerist cultures. And the current coronavirus pandemic is a reminder of the need to evolve our social and business ecosystems. And I think this is really an exciting time for designers to create new scenarios, innovate unique models that can address pressing issues of today, especially that the market, like we can sense it, there's a wave of awareness across the planet, and consumers are becoming more mindful. They are demanding these practices and they want to see it. And I think this is something really to capitalize on. In Namliya, we did create a very innovative business model that had evolved along the years. So it's an assemblage of interacting parts, and it really expresses, let's say, natural systems in a way. We imagined, we started with something very simple. We just wanted to reimagine the kitchen as part of a larger whole, which includes human systems, production systems, and natural systems, through which we could address the fragile food chain, for example, and reintroduce local and wild ingredients to our everyday city life. Along the years, we learned how many of these problems lie in logistics, like in really practical elements that Like, it's very interesting to say that in the past 8 years, during the past 8 years, were a training facility for us to hone our skills, to develop crisis management and adaptation to change. Since our food system mimics nature, there's a high degree of interdependence and uncertainty. And this had really helped us build the needed wisdom and resilience to face the pandemic and be able to thrive. So we are some of the very few small businesses who were able to survive. And it was not just pure luck. I would say that we own it to this business model and to our approach since the very beginning. And although our customers, or let's say the front end that is customer facing, is just a range of minimal products and a few services, what not a lot of people know is the intricate mesh of invisible systems within systems in the back end that make it possible. So at the heart of Namliya is a diverse community that is continuously expanding. Our business activities are inspired by this network of interdisciplinary conversations, and they have really been part of the design process since the very beginning, bringing different perspectives and experiences. And it was such an interesting part of our work that we were able to bring people from all of these different fields together. And it was at the beginning just casual gatherings, talking about general issues, but to discuss them with a person that you never thought you would meet in such a space was really the beginning of many interesting business activities. So just really quickly, if we think about the traditional farmers, we were able along the years to create farm experiences. Through them, our jams are possible. We usually also started some compost training, and an integral part was the experts and consultants who helped us create the needed systems of production and logistics. And we go around this circle, seeing how so many people are involved in creating what is Namliya today. And in an interesting way, it really mimics nature in a sense where, how trees cannot expand their canopies beyond their root systems. And this is what we were striving to achieve. And this is really why we were able to overcome many of the crises that we faced in the past years. And this intricate network is what makes such a simple product be able to carry a lot of meaning and a lot of values. So just looking at the very simple label, you can see how many systems are involved and how we are able to achieve innovation. It was not easy to come up with these recipes where we would not add sugar as commercial facilities would, to extract our own natural pectin, but still achieve a certain shelf life where we could export. So that was a lot of work on one side. And to bring a new value to what is local, because there is lack of trust. And when something is local, it always has a nationalistic, let's say, or narratives of nationalism, but not really those of bioregions, and thinking of the environment and what kind of social impact we can achieve. And I think the complexity of the network is really hard to grasp because it's just an invisible mesh. Another really interesting area where food design could step in is the urban fabric, or the city sphere, let's say. Food design can disrupt norms, traditions, and social constructs. I really believe there is a wide range of undiscovered possibilities within the interrelated field of design, architecture, and food. putting focus on creating new narratives for a future city where social bonds and citizen relationships can be fostered through temporary food activities could really open a world of possibilities for food designers to step in. I think there is a need to create new traditions, new narratives, and new interrelationships. And I'm going to share one of the first, or let's say, this is when Nambiya really came out with this concept of food design. We didn't really know what to call it. And the best shot we were able to come up with was food plus design. And we were commissioned to create a food program for the first edition of Amman Design Week, and found that as a great opportunity to change the face of food experiences in public events instead of the regular popcorn and hot dogs and whatnot. So just to give some context, the lack of public spaces and expression of diverse cultural narratives is a huge debate in Jordan. And it's quite surreal for me to look at this photo and really grasp the kind of, let's say, opportunity we had to express new possibilities on a national scale. We were really breaking the status quo of, let's say, the role of women in the public sphere. It was rewarding. It was so rewarding for us to be able to involve many of the people that we were already working with in our existing network. And we had this relationship of, let's say, sourcing some of the ingredients and talking about ways to evolve the traditional knowledge that they had. But we never even thought that it would be a possibility to bring them to the most happening event in Amman, put them in a position of power, and give them food service models that they could move forward with. So it was really a massive project in 3 venues across Amman. I wouldn't do that again. It's not really my thing, like to work on this massive scale, but I think it's an interesting space for exploration. And the final thing I want to talk about when thinking about food design and the global context is one that's closest to my heart, I would say. Like, if we agree that most of our global issues are a result of our mindless behavior, and that our senses have been numbed for many years, and if we can say that we are only able to destroy things that we do not see of value, then I really believe that the ability to appreciate beauty can have a deep impact on paving the path to more inspired choices. Like, that would be the least. And food designers really have this skill and ability to reawaken the senses and create experiences that would spark a sense of wonder with the natural world. And a very simple example would be Namliya's workshops. We design different workshops that promote the brand's core values, inspiring a shift in lifestyle. But through these guided sessions, participants are offered the chance to engage with raw ingredients and design their own creations from scratch. And the aim is really to make design an accessible tool for everyone in order to, let's say, democratize the process of creating an alternative lifestyle. And I witnessed that in firsthand. These guided experiences were able to train senses, heighten appreciation, and offer forms of different forms of practicing mindfulness. And it has been so rewarding to hear the testimonials of these participants and how such simple interventions created long-lasting, let's say, they were touched deeply. that's it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I did not want to interrupt you, but you gave us so many um, thinking points there. And yeah, I'm absolutely, completely inspired by your work, and also the way you express it, the way you narrate it. Um, so I just want to continue really hearing from you, but I also want to say hello to everybody who's joining the in the chat room, and we have people from Indonesia, and we have people from Dubai. I say people because I don't think that their username is their name. And then Amsterdam, David from Amsterdam. So thank you so much, guys, for connecting. It really does make a for just writing where you're from, right? It really does make it a little bit like we were getting coffee together or something. Also, I want to say, whenever you have a question, just shoot it in the chat room, and I will ask questions to Aya as we go along. We no need to wait the end of the webinar.
Yeah, absolutely. Please interrupt me and ask your questions. I would be happy to answer them.
Perfect. And then, yeah, I mean, the next question that I have really is about trends. And the question was supposed to be, what current trends are you excited about? Well, we talked about a little bit about this before we went live. So I'm just going to ask you, yeah, what trends have you worked with lately that have left any type of impact on you?
Yeah, I was expecting this question, and I was trying to be as true to it as I can, because I really don't find myself getting excited about trends. And I even get a bit cynical, because I could really see how trends could be a tool for social segregation and place detachment. And specifically, place detachment is a very important theme in work, so it's hard for me not to see it. But I still think the trends are very interesting to look at the reason why they emerged, why they spread, and how they resonate with people. Understanding the psychology behind them would give great insight for food designers to create relevant and meaningful propositions. I just wanted to share one accidental trend, I would say, which we experienced throughout our work. Like, we would just naturally propose something, and we never expected to just catch fire. But this is really relevant, and it has been just post-COVID. And this is how tiny our kitchen is. You can see on the left. This is how tiny our seating area is. You can see in the middle. But we are still able to create, let's say, food that is wholesome, that is full of love and colors, and we always get firsthand, like, we get feedback right away on what people think. So right after the lockdown, we were facing a lot of challenges, like many food businesses. We were trying to adapt, and we had to shrink our production to 30%, but we still had a whole network of suppliers who were constantly calling us. We had jam inventory that was supposed to be exported, and was filling up, and we really didn't want to waste any of that. We experienced much less footfall, and so we thought, why not create a completely new channel, a completely new proposition, and just to open up on the weekends and start offering this brunch. Our intention was just to offer something wholesome and beautiful, something to go, to inspire people to come out of their homes, to create new rituals and walk in the city, bond over new food experiences, and that's exactly what happened. It was just amazing to see how people felt it was a safe space. They really missed that warmth, that coziness, the smell of bread and gathering around it. It was a bit hard to to resist having everyone inside, but we had very strict rules. That was on the left when the wave really was flattened and everyone was feeling easy. But this is something that I really enjoyed creating and experiencing. It had been such a long time since I spent time in the kitchen because we're mostly doing our research and design work. So this was, let's say, it brought new life. And we were able to keep our employees and to sustain our network. So that was some good news post-pandemic.
Excellent. What a beautiful story. Thank you so much, Aya.
Thank you.
Jashan is also here with us from Mumbai and Vera from Brooklyn. Hello. And Sazil, I guess. Sazilha, sorry, I'm not pronouncing that correctly for sure. From Yucatan, Mexico. Thank you so much, guys. Again, if you have any questions, ask them anytime, don't worry. The next question that I have for you, it goes broader and we bring it back to a bigger, I guess, a bigger view, an overall perspective on, how you look at things. What has been your biggest discovery so far of course, within food design, or the most important thing that you have learned?
Okay. So the most important discovery for me personally was to know that this discipline exists. I couldn't even describe the feeling of landing on the DIFD website and realizing that there's a whole movement in the world of like-minded people who totally get what we do with very little words. It really boosted my confidence and gave me a great sense of, let's say, of purpose and validation, that food is universal and that it has timeless relevance. And it's really, it was a personal, like, aha moment. I was so happy to discover it.
When
and I'm so
that?
excited. When was that? Just a little bit more than a year
Excellent.
ago. So imagine, we were working for 7 years, and right from the start, it was food design for sure. We tried to name it and define it, but we couldn't. The best we could do was food plus design.
Which makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and I cannot even describe the amount of criticism and shaming and questioning and like, what the hell are you doing with your architectural work? And the worst part is that people wanted me to say that we completely gave up on architecture, or I just want to spend time in the kitchen, or I want to pursue a completely different passion. But I was so persistent that, you see this jar, this is the design process. You see this jam, it's not the jam, it's the band.
It's a food system.
Yeah, so to come across, and it was just before the pandemic. And I really appreciate that. I'm grateful for that. And I think it came at a time that was very important for us. We had already, let's say, made most of we found our own voice and relevance and understood the context and tried to really bring things together. And now to find about the discipline, we're ready to collaborate, to communicate, to question things. And it gives a completely new cycle to the work, I think.
Yeah, it still, though, that still doesn't make difference on whether your parents know what you do. Like, I've heard many people within food design that I don't know how to explain to my parents what I do. And I'm the same. And we were saying this with Nicole last week. We still
it's so funny
to explain what we do, but still it's good to have a community. I get you, I understand.
It's so funny that you mentioned Nicole, because yesterday I was on a call with her. It was the first time that we met, and I was just trying to introduce myself, and I said my goal would be, and I know it would be my greatest achievement, if my first circle of my parents and my first circle of friends know what I do, that would be it, really. But I think they already lost the interest. They don't want to know.
Yeah, I know. I completely understand. At one point, they give up. We have Isam from Jordan and Chintian from UK and Pina from Bologna.
Isam is my dad.
Sorry?
That's my dad. He's interested.
He's interested. He's actually listening to you. He's learning what you do. Hello, sir. Nice to meet you. Your daughter is excellent. She's one of the most inspiring human beings I've ever met. And she's doing not only beautifully creative work, but she's actually changing the world. Let me tell you,
Wow.
sir. So you should be very proud of your daughter, sir. We have Pina from Bologna. Pina, ciao, che bello vederti. Grazie per essere venuta. And then we have Omar who says, very proud of you girls. Thank you, Omar. Right, so my next question is this. As some of the people who follow us, who follow me and these webinars know, I have many people who write to me who are people who are just wanting to join the food design, the world of food design. Maybe students coming out of university wanting, to start being a food designer. How do I start being a food designer? Or people who have had a different career path and then they want to shift into the world of food design. So my question for you is really, what is your number one business advice you would give to people? Being yourself somebody who fresh from architecture, from an architecture degree, went to Malaysia, went on a trip and came back wanting to design jars of jam, and you started your own business and you are actually have been doing it for a long while and successfully. So I think you would be a wonderful source for an answer about this.
Yeah, thank you. I never thought I would be able to give business advice, especially that I was lost for many years, and yeah, it didn't seem that I really got the hang of it. And I think that starting a company with very little business background was not the best thing to do because it was just a series of uphill challenges. But I know that for me, if I hadn't done it right away, I wouldn't have done that at all. Like if I gave it a thought, I would definitely be full of fears. So probably my number one advice would to never have self-doubt and always have confidence. I caught myself seeking validation from the same, let's say, the same models and schools of thought that I was trying to reinvent. So that was a vicious cycle. And I wish there was more relevant advice and guidance at the time. But I feel very hopeful. I feel that there is this community that can support each other and answer all of these questions. So I encourage all designers to challenge the status quo of conventional food businesses and to embrace the role of reinventing the market and reimagining the future. And to be able to do that, I would be a bit more practical and pragmatic with that, that we really need to develop a skill set and practical tools to be able to survive, because it's not the passion that keeps you going. Persistence does, a sense of purpose for sure, but passion, you will not feel or see your passion when you're down in a rabbit hole. And and this is a bit cliche, but following your gut feeling is so important. It shows up, and it even if you deny it, it makes itself very, very visible. You feel it in your body, and that's really important.
Yeah, this is actually quite interesting and quite important for me too. And although I feel like I have always known of the importance of following your gut feeling, but I think I've actually understood what it actually means just recently, maybe in the past year or two. Like before, it was like one of the things that I would tell myself, but only recently I've actually noticed a crucial moment where I felt the gut feeling, recognized the gut feeling, decided to follow it, and then gave it the time so that retrospectively I was able to say, hey, that time that I followed the gut feeling, it was actually great. So it's if some of you guys who are listening feel like, oh, I know what she's talking about. But now thinking about it, maybe you see that you couldn't really describe the gut feeling, and when you've actually followed it, give this a thought. Spend time on, like, work on this, because shifting from theory to practice is excellent. It's an excellent skill to have in your life with this particular thing. One thing that I wanted to ask you, I guess, and I want to bring it up here now that we are, talking about business, or or our version of talking about business, and to bring it back into food, the importance of designing for food systems. Earlier, when you were describing your work, you mentioned how it is difficult sometimes to communicate through a jar of jam the actual food system. So people who know you, people who know the brand, or people who want to learn more about the brand, learn that you don't make only the jar of jam, but there's also an array of other things that your business does, that you can do with your practice. And these people would probably at some point learn about your approach to the system that you have created, that you have gathered around you. And so, how do you make sure that you communicate what you want to about your food system to these people? But then there's also the other people who are gonna walk past your shop, have a look inside, and say, "Hey, look at those beautiful labels on the jam." And they come in and they buy a jar, they buy one actual product, and they go home. How do you communicate it to those people? So we have seen the label that you showed us earlier. Maybe you want to talk about that a little bit, the actual thinking behind, in the jar, I want to communicate certain things.
Very interesting questions. I'm going to try to answer them to the best that I can, and to remember. I'll start with the second one, and then we can go to the first one, because I kind of forgot the first question. But the second question is really, really interesting, because I learned through practice that my approach was not the best. I was standing in this shop trying to explain all of these intricate, unseen network of like everything that's happening. And coming from a designer background, it was just me trying to present my work and all of the theories, the philosophy that's behind it. And I wouldn't deny that some people found so much value in that. They wanted to know more. They would have really interesting questions. But that was just, let's say, 1%. And throughout the years, we learned to really look at the perspective, like through the perspective of the customer. And that was something that was a major shift. And we realized that when I step into the kitchen as a third person, not a lot of things are communicated to me, because we take these things for granted. I look at the label, I'm like, wow, there's this icon about biodiversity, there's this, there's that. And you have all of that information, but not a lot of people connect with that. Some people find it intimidating. And throughout the years, the number one effective way was when they would have the openness and curiosity to try. And as soon as they try the jam, they would have so many arguments like, why is it 2 times more expensive than commercial jams? I can get so much more than that, a kilogram of oranges, and so on, all of these. And as soon as they just put the spoonful in their mouths, there's a complete transformation. And I never really stopped to think about the power of that until I knew about the food design discipline, thinking about food in that way. Like, I was designing the whole experience, but I never really understood the profound transformation of not needing to say anything, but the person would try that, and all of a sudden they're transported to the past or to the future. They start saying stories about the best jam they ever had, that it's been 15 years since they had a real marmalade, that it reminded them of a childhood garden and a certain tree. And it was so interesting to see that. I don't know if that really answers the question,
It does, absolutely. And so the first part was to those who have tested the jam, have already gone to the website, or maybe have already participated in one of your workshops or other things. So to the people who are already, to the people who have expressed their interest with their time in learning about what you do, then what, maybe how, but also what do you tell them about the whole thing, the whole system that is around you?
So it's the first time that I ever talk about the system, and it was triggered by your questions and by the way you perceived our work when you saw the business profile when we met in November. And to me, when you just said, I is a food system designer, and I went to my work partner and I'm like, hey, we are food system designers. How cool is that? But I was just thinking about it. I'm like, yes, that's exactly what we do. Because when we were architects, we were thinking about systems as well. We were thinking of programs that would bring together all of these disciplines and, let's say, questions of dwelling in the space and not just creating the space. So this was already a thought process in our approach. And it made perfect sense to me. But I wouldn't imagine, I was so excited to talk about it today because I know that you are the food design thinking school. So we're talking about a school of thought. And people who are coming here, they want to hear about this. So I didn't think twice about presenting that. I would say on a completely different level, people feel that. I think our survival for this long cannot be luck or persistence or any of that. And let's say our network of suppliers, people we work with, we keep intersecting paths at different stages of the work. And in the beginning, we were so excited to explain all of these things to them. We went to the farmers wanting to exchange knowledge and to tell them all about the things that we discovered and we found on the other side of the world, but they weren't interested. All they wanted to do was, if you want anything from me, you can buy my fruits and that's it. But slowly, we built these ties and relations and they became more and more curious. And I would say everyone who is part of this community and part of this network feels this invisible and unseen force, especially now after the pandemic. It has been crazy to tangibly feel a shift in consciousness and a shift in, now people just talk about permaculture like it's the obvious way to go, or local foods, of course, but this wasn't the case. And I think it's just great that there is this new wave, and that's why food designers should absolutely surf on that wave and take it to the next level.
Absolutely. I just felt the invisible force myself when you were talking about that slowly you built that relationship with your farmers and they understood what they were part of. I just got goosebumps, which for me, goosebumps, they come when they don't come, they come anywhere in my body. And to me, they are the sign, the way I put it is that when I feel that is because something true has been said, and I feel that true in like a broader, higher sense. So to me, there was truth in, or another word can actually be beauty. There was beauty in what you said, and so I felt the invisible force. It is there. It is working, and I think that the more, and this is why I posted something a few days ago on Instagram about this thing that I've been thinking for now about a year or something, that I'm almost ready to bring out to people in some form or another, that I feel like it's time to shift from user-centered design, maybe even earth-centered design, to designer-centered design. and design done with awareness, which is what you were talking about before. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel that when I designer, maker of stuff, I build things, I make things, even if things are just relationship. If I'm a food system designer, if I uh, with my creative process am aware of what I'm doing and aware of what I'm working, this awareness
Yeah,
somehow is gonna, I don't know how, maybe it's the invisible force.
it transmits.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. And what you just said reminded me of one of the core beliefs we had as architects to begin with, and then as food designers, if we can say that, that the process of creation is never, it doesn't emerge out of nothing. And it's always inspired by what already is there. And I think our role, or the role that we need to remember, is that all we need to do is to identify and revive those visible and hidden forces so that people can interact with it. And I think this, let's say, exaggeration of me is something I completely experienced in the architectural scene. You feel that you are the source of creation and you want to do whatever you want to do in that design. You want people to interact with that space. But to be a conductor of all of these forces is what we need to remember.
Beautiful. I love it. And in fact, your dad, Isam, says, proud of Aya.
Uh, my dad had, I need to say that my dad was really an absolute supporter without understanding what the hell we were doing, but he was
Beautiful.
always supportive. And,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Beautiful. So we have a couple of questions.
Mhm.
So Ahmed is saying, awesome question. How does food design look at the experience of the customer differently than a traditional and conventional food experience? Let me see. How does food designer look at the experience of the customer? In differently than a traditional and conventional food experience. I'm not sure if I get this question. Well, how
Mhm.
do you interpret it?
Uh,
How food
I, what I understood is how food design see the customer, but I can only answer that from a very personal
of course,
perspective.
of
Yeah,
course.
like just my opinion, especially that I came across a lot of, let's say, business advisors who look at customers as opportunities and people we want to capture their attention, we want to serve, we want to make sure that we give them the best experience to ultimately have them pay for these services. And I always had trouble with that because I felt that I had a message and I wanted to communicate certain values. And every customer, I really want every customer who steps into Namliya to leave at least with a question, with an inspiration, with something that stays with them. And that could be really my approach as a food designer. Like it's just a chance to, as you said, transmit these messages.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Lynn, can you tell us how did architecture impact your work? There you go.
Architecture. Hmm. I feel very grateful for having studied architecture. And when I connect with why I decided to go into that field was because I was allured uh, by the space that architecture gave students to step into so many different disciplines and to really dive deep. And I think that really gave the foundation and, let's say, the fertile soils for me to be able to uh, speculate such a model.
Excellent. I love it. Let's see if there's other questions. Okay, I have one question for you, which is my
Okay.
last question. It's 6 p.m. I mean, it's 6 p.m. for me. We've been here for 1 hour. One last question for me is really, I think, one of my favorite questions that I like to ask my guests. What would you like to be remembered by?
That's such a hard question. But I feel that we already somehow touched upon that, because I feel great honor when I am able to inspire others to explore alternative paths and to speak their truth no matter what society or culture thinks. And that's always something so tangible that I feel I love it when I see how people interact with my work or with my approach and see that they were touched deeply. It's really funny that last night I was just thinking about what I want my legacy to be, and I had a sleepless night, and I was just imagining, like, what do I want to leave behind me, and I had this vision of wanting to create. Okay, it's not that impressive. It's just really funny, and I just imagined that I want to create an unseen web, like mycelium, that would very silently and softly eat away the old systems and structures, and to transform them to mushrooms and wildflowers.
I love it.
And it just came to me, but I still need to think about it and understand what that means. But it just, that was my gut feeling.
On some level, you have already created this. If you created it in your mind, the first step is done. Now it's all, it's all, third dimension, trying to make it tangible type of thing. Nothing. Excellent. I love it. Okay. I think we can close. Thank you everybody for your questions. Before I close, very important, Aya, tell us how we can connect with you. Give us your Instagram, your website, your things. And in the meantime,
easier to just share them. Yeah.
And in the meantime, I'll just read David's comment. Such beautiful sentiment. I completely agree with you on the power we feel when helping Mother Nature. Wow, thank you so much, David. That's lovely comments. And 3 hearts, beautiful. Thank you so much.
I really want to thank everyone who came today. It was great to hear their comments, their questions. Yeah. It was inspiring.
Absolutely. So we have your Instagram, we have your email, and your website is namliye.com.
Yes.
Brilliant.
It's still in progress.
It's still in progress, but Instagram and email are all we need, really. Brilliant. Yeah. So again, thank you, everybody. I'll see you here next week for another webinar on food trends. We'll talk about those a little bit more. And I think for me, I completely agree with you, Aya, with what we were saying before. And I think for me too, the importance is to look at trends for what they can give us without forgetting where they come from. We have a couple of comments. Aya, you're a great inspiration. Thank you so much, from Noor. Completely agree. Yasmin, this was wonderful and so enlightening. Looking forward to your future work. Me too. And Aya will stay in touch. And to you, finally, thank you so much for joining me and doing this. Everybody, most people who follow me know that these webinars are all for free. There's nothing going on. Nobody is selling anything. We just do it for the pleasure of chatting and sharing beautiful people and beautiful thoughts and beautiful food design. So thank you, Aya.
Thank you, Francesca, for this chance. Thank you.
Again, a kiss to everybody, and see you next Friday. Thank you, Aya. Okay.